I'm asking all Australian voters to give your number one vote to other political candidates and put Liberal and Labor last and second last. Because Liberal and Labor have proven throughout Australia that they have failed Australia so badly. Look at all the suicide, 4 decades of suicide, homelessness, 105,000 homeless Australians, killing people in psychiatric facilities and in the community with dangerous drugs, destroying the rights, authority and status of teachers all over the country. They've been doing it for years. They're not to be trusted. You cannot trust Liberal and Labor politicians any longer. They don't care about your rights as a voter, as a citizen, as a constituent. And they have failed the Australian people so badly that they deserve to be put last and second last on the ballot paper. And I'm asking all voters to give your number one vote to another political party or another candidate. I'll be contesting the Fremantle federal electorate. I'll be on the ballot paper with Palmer's United Australia Party. And I'm asking the Fremantle federal electorate, the voters, to vote me number one. And there are lots of reasons for that. And some of the reasons is that I've got the best vision for education of anybody in this nation. As an experienced teacher, I'm actually one of the few people qualified and experienced to fix the education system where Liberal and Labor politicians have failed dismally. I'm a very honest person. I speak my mind. I fight for the rights of people, of Australian citizens. I fight for your rights and freedoms. And Liberal and Labor candidates and politicians have destroyed Australians' rights and freedoms. There are very few rights and freedoms protection for citizens in our Australian Constitution, and that is a big problem politically, and also for you, your rights as living every day in our nation. So they have no concern for those issues. They don't talk about them. They have created those problems, and we are just going to get more corruption if you vote for Liberal and Labor. If you vote Liberal and Labor one, you are wasting your vote. It is a total waste of a vote. Because they have failed so badly, they cannot provide effective leadership for our country. It's over for them. So I'm asking you to search out other candidates and give your number one vote to other candidates. And that is the way to empower yourself as a citizen, to empower yourself as a constituent, to empower yourself as a voter. And I refer to this article in today's paper, or actually yesterday's paper, Thursday, June the 13th, 2013. Labor wipeout. Polling shows government could lose its 3 WA seats. Recent internal Labor Party polling shows the Gillard government stands to lose all 3 of its WA seats as the Prime Minister's recognition of the gender wars further inflame leadership talk. The West Australian understands the poll shows Cabinet Ministers Gary Gray and Brown and Stephen Smith in Perth are in deep trouble. It also has Melissa Park under threat in Fremantle, though party officials believe she will hold the seat on September 14th. That's the seat I'm contesting. I'm asking Fremantle federal voters to give their number one vote to me, not to Melissa Park, because she's had this seat for at least 2 terms, and having a female Labor Prime Minister, she was not able to secure a ministerial role, so she'll never be able to secure a ministerial role. So she's not a strong enough leader, and you're going to need a strong leader to be able to stand up to Tony Abbott and the Liberal politicians who have no respect for women, and they have no respect for the rights and freedoms of everyday Australians. They are so corrupt. The corruption of Liberal is beyond measure. And Labor, they are totally corrupt. And like I said, you're wasting your vote. If you give your number one vote to them, you are wasting your vote. And I continue to have compassion for our nation and feel sorry for the people of our nation who've been brainwashed and indoctrinated to vote Liberal and Labor for so long that we need to break that. We need to break that damaging trend, that indoctrination that has been going on for so long. Also, the commercial media, including this paper, and commercial media, print media, and also television media, is guilty of indoctrinating the electorate with the Liberal Labor charade, because There are heaps of other registered political parties, and there's always independents as well who contest elections. There are heaps of registered political parties. There's Palmer's United Party, there's Australia Voice, who is putting Senate candidates in, there's Australia First Party, there's Rise Up Australia Party, there's Australian Christians, there's Australian Democrats. There are heaps of registered political parties, and these commercial media outlets, all they do is promote Liberal Labor charade all the time. They have just sacked 40 staff in this paper. They have, or making them redundant, they're letting go of 40 workers. And I'll tell you why. Because the sale of print papers is declining. People are not reading the newspapers, and the main reason why people are not reading newspapers or even print literature is because you, the editor, and the journalist keep promoting corrupt Liberal and Labor politicians who have destroyed the education system. And now you find you have to sack 40 workers because you can't afford to keep them, because people aren't buying newspapers, because you keep promoting Liberal and Labor politicians in your journalism, and you are promoting the very same politicians and parties who have destroyed the teachers' rights, who have destroyed the education system. So that's why people don't read the newspaper as much, and also print literature. So I'm asking this paper to support other candidates like me and other candidates in political elections and other parties that are registered, and provide proper objective journalism. Because otherwise you're just engaging in political propaganda. So you've got no one to blame but yourself. Because you keep promoting the corrupt Liberal Labor politicians all the time, who are destroying people's ability to write and read. And that is why people are not reading the newspaper, buying the newspaper and reading it. So stop promoting those corrupt politicians. Julia Gillard campaigned in Fremantle last night and had a conversation with British comedian Ben Elton at Victoria Hall. That's Victoria Hall, Fremantle. The last time Labor failed to win a federal seat in WA was in 1917. The party was reduced to one seat in the election after Gough Whitlam was dismissed in 1975 and in 1977 when he unsuccessfully sought redemption. Labor MPs' pessimism yesterday about their chances was combined with discomfort at the PM invoking abortion in her political attack on the opposition leader, Tony Abbott. And the opposition leader concept is not in the Constitution. It's not constitutional, so they've corrupted that. They're supposed to be governing Australia under a federal executive council of politicians in the lower house under sections 61, 62 and 64 of the Constitution. So there is no provision for an opposition leader in the Constitution, and the position of Prime Minister is not stated in the Constitution either. Ministers are supposed to be appointed and dismissed by the Governor-General. The opposition leader and his blue-tie alternative government. Yes, because all they care about, Liberal politicians, is the rich people. That's all they care about. They don't care about everyday Australians. New South Wales Labor backbenchers Ed Hussick and Stephen Jones expressed concern about Miss Gillard adopting divisive tactics, as did feminists about her playing the gender card. Well, I don't like Julia Gillard because she's an atheist. And I certainly don't like Tony Abbott because he is corrupt. And look what he did to Pauline Hanson and David Ettridge. Used his position, used public money, or private money as well, to have them jailed for political reasons. He would have done that to anybody. He would have done that to any Australian citizen, because they have no respect for other candidates, they have no respect for other political parties, and that means they have no respect for you as a citizen, as a constituent, as a voter. They will engage in any means criminal activity as well to destroy other political candidates. That's how corrupt they are. That's how evil they are. That's how much they care about. All they care about is their own lust for power and greed and selfishness. Pursuing political office for selfish, greedy reasons. And they don't care about you. And the evidence is all the injustice they have created in our society, which I talk about constantly. So Liberal politicians just serve the rich, that's it. So you need to put them last on the ballot paper. You need to put Labor second last on the ballot paper. Because they have oppressed the Australian people. They're engaging in corruption and criminal behaviour against Australian people through their corruption of the parliament, through their corrupt use of tax money and their corrupt use of the rich people's money just to destroy other political candidates and to increase their own power and control. That's all they care about. And if the Australian people can't see that, you know, I just feel really sorry for the Australian people. I was born in Australia, I'm Australian. And I just see the injustice everywhere, and it's shocking. And most of these people should be jailed. Most of these Liberal politicians and Labor politicians, they should be jailed for all the death. You know, Australia does not have an ageing population. It has a high rate of unnatural death. And I want a royal commission into deaths in Australia throughout the past 50 years or 100 years. All the suicide, all the homelessness, all the people killed because of psychiatry, all the people killed in prisons. They just lock people up, locking the Aboriginal people up decade after decade. It just never ends. Miss Gillard said Mr Jones and Mr Hussick were not in Parliament when female Liberals successfully revolted against Tony Abbott's power as Health Minister to veto the abortion drug RU486 in Australia in 2006. Mr Abbott's conduct at that time and the fact that women in his own party felt the need to rebel tells you something about Mr Abbott's attitudes, she said. Mr Abbott said that he was not contemplating changing abortion laws if he became Prime Minister. Well, he's lying, isn't he? Because for so long he has campaigned and had a view about abortion that everybody knows. I'm a Christian, but I'm not necessarily against abortion because it's the women who decide. It's the woman's body. And there's no right for men to be forcing their views on women in this way. It's just another way that male politicians destroy women's rights in Australia, regardless of the party they're with. Mr Abbott said that he was not contemplating changing abortion laws if he became Prime Minister. You can't trust Tony Abbott. You cannot trust him. You can't trust him because of what he's done to Pauline Hanson and David Ettridge. And you might not agree with what they said or what they did, but the fact is they would do that to any Australian. They would have done that to anybody because they got 1 million first preference votes in their first federal election. So they sought to destroy them. Liberal and Labor got together and they destroyed that party. And it's not even the fact that it was the people involved, it was the fact that they were losing their power. That's what it's about. So they will destroy your rights and freedoms, and they have, in a flash. Failed, bad and corrupt leadership. Their failed and bad and corrupt leadership has led to an enormous amount of death in Australia. They have to be voted out, otherwise nothing will change. One female MP, a supporter of Miss Gillard, said she was worried the PM was again retreating to Labor's base rather than appealing to the broader community. Miss Gillard faces a dangerous fortnight in Parliament next week with mounting expectation of a final push from those wanting a Kevin Rudd comeback. Bill Shorten, a Gillard ally, declared his support for her but asked whether she would lead Labor to the election. He was less emphatic, saying, "Yes, I believe so." Miss Gillard's gender war seemed vindicated when a menu from a Liberal National Party fundraiser for former Howard Government Minister Mel Bruff emerged. The crude menu denigrated the PM. One dish for the March 28 $1,000 head dinner was, quote, Julia Gillard Kentucky Fried Quail, small breasts, huge thighs and big da-da-da. Mr Brow and Shadow Treasure Joe Hockey, the star of the Brisbane restaurant event, denied seeing the menu and condemned it. Well, they're lying as well, obviously, aren't they? Because I don't think the journalists are wrong, Andrew Probyn and Andrew Tillett. I believe the journalists before I believe the politicians. So it's either the journalists are lying or the politicians are lying. And I can tell you that the politicians are lying. If it's on the menu, it's on the menu. So they were just blatantly lie to your face. Mr Abbott dismissed Miss Gillard's demand for Mr Bruff to be dropped as an LNP candidate, saying politicians should rise above such tawdriness, even if that is such a word. Whether a tacky menu at a Liberal event or squalid jokes at union conferences with ministers, politicians, quote, should be better than that, he said. Miss Gillard said the grossly sexist and offensive menu was part of a pattern of behaviour within the coalition. That's true. The coalition released an email last night from restaurant owner Joe Richards saying he created the mock menu as a light-hearted joke that was not intended for guests. That's garbage as well. You know, obviously it's intended for his guests, politicians, $1,000 a head, and their supporters, the rich people. They have no concern for Australians, no concern for the suffering going on in our country. They are just absolutely corrupt. Most of them should be jailed for all the death in our society. Failed, bad and corrupt leadership. And it does highlight an issue about the treatment of women in Australia. That male politicians dominate the parliament and male judges dominate the judiciary. Male judges dominate the judiciary and male politicians. They have no respect for women. They have no respect for women leaders. And I'm asking all women voters throughout Australia to vote for a female candidate in the election. There are 51% of women in Australia. That's the gender configuration. 51% women, 49% men. And women are grossly underrepresented in politics and the judiciary. And that is why these injustices against women and children and the poor people can prevail. Because let's face the fact, men have to respect women more. And I have respect for good men. There's another article about the issue. It all looks so deliberate, a provocative needling of Tony Abbott on misogyny, followed by an attempted knockout punch using a grossly sexist menu from a Liberal National Party fundraiser. The truth is far messier, an instance of chaos rather than conspiracy. It began with Labor's Women for Gillard, a Sydney event on Tuesday for young female ALP supporters that was meant to be closed to the media. But wise service journalist with the Australian Associated Press, Sam McKeith, found his way in. No one seemed to be bothered by the fact that he had a notebook and a dictaphone. Good on you, mate, for getting in there. McKeith's stories went on The Wire just after midday and quoted the Prime Minister telling the crowd that under an Abbott government, women would be banished from the centre of Australia's political life and abortion would become the political plaything of men. I think that's probably true. Tony Abbott has got no respect for women. And Australians women are already banished from the centre of Australia's political life because Julia Gillard really hasn't done much to campaign the rights of women in Australia, I don't think. Other newsrooms went nuts, demanding to know from the Prime Minister's office how AAP got in when no journalist was meant to be there. The PM's office agreed to issue a script of her comments and scratchy footage taken by a staffer originally intended for social media only. The story took off and various opposition frontbenchers quickly condemned her for firing more salvos in the gender wars. Well, she's got a point. Shadow Treasurer Joe Hockey took to Twitter. Gillard's comments on abortion and the coalition are desperate and offensive. She has never deserved respect and will never receive it. The fact is, men like Joe Hockey and Tony Abbott don't respect women. That's the problem. Those Liberal politicians don't respect women. Because they only serve the rich, and most rich people are men. And I respect men, good men, and all the men in the Fremantle Federal electorate. I can guarantee that you come to me, the men in the Fremantle Federal electorate, and I'll help every single one of you, with resolving your issue that you want to resolve or what you want to pursue. I will work with you until it's achieved. Because I have respect for men, for good men, and obviously I have respect for women. But these men do not respect women. They don't. That tweet was seen by a fellow who used to work in a restaurant used for a Liberal National Party fundraiser in Brisbane for comeback candidate Mel Bro on March the 28th. Andrew, as he called himself on ABC radio yesterday, was aggravated by Mr Hockey's tweet given what he had been attempting to make public for a couple of months. His mate at the restaurant had taken a picture of the menu from Mr Brow's 1,000 a head dinner. So the menu is true. The menu is true, and Mr Bruff and Shadow Treasurer Joe Hockey, the star of the Brisbane restaurant event, denied seeing the menu and condemned it. Well, they're lying. They will lie through their teeth to get your vote. That's the problem, isn't it? They are so corrupt that they're so dishonest. They cannot provide leadership. They cannot serve as good politicians. It is beyond them, because the prevalence with which they will lie and deceive you is so great that if you vote for them, you're wasting your vote. It is a total waste of a vote to vote for Liberal, and it's a waste of a vote to vote for Labor, I believe. So you vote for other candidates, number one. So obviously it is true, because this journalist took a photo of it and distributed it around. Andrew sent the picture to his local MP Kevin Rudd weeks ago, as well as to the Labor Party. No one replied and no one seemed interested. They certainly did when he retweeted it yesterday. As well as imploring guests to please ensure you eat up all your greens before they take over completely, the menu offered a Rudd's a goose foie gras, but halfway down the menu it read Julia Gillard, Kentucky fried quail, small breasts, huge thighs and a big da-da-da. Mr Hockey, who happened to be the star attraction for the night, claimed he didn't see the menu. He's obviously lying. If he can lie about a simple thing like that, he can lie about anything. Mr Bruff said he didn't see it either. Well, he's lying as well. You know, they're so dishonest. That's what makes them corrupt, because it's their dishonesty. The level of their dishonesty, and that makes them very corrupt. Convenient, cried government types. The PM demanded Mr Bruff be disendorsed, but Mr Abbott stood by him, albeit a bit awkwardly. It turned out the menu had not been distributed according to the restaurant owner last night. Regardless, it had caused a storm. Please give your number one vote to other political candidates around Australia, and put Liberal and Labor last and second last on the ballot paper, because that's where they deserve to go. But it's not good enough. It's just not good enough that they can have a dinner and the male owner of the restaurant allow the menu where it's degrading to women. So male politicians dominating the parliaments in Australia, federal parliament, state parliaments, and male judges dominating the judiciary as judges and magistrates. There is not gender equality for women, and it's the fault of men. I'm sorry if that offends you, but it's the truth. You don't want to share equal leadership with women. It's as simple as that. And that proves that you don't respect women. But it's the evidence and it's the facts, isn't it? So I think men need to take a very long, hard look at themselves, the way they treat women in Australia, and male politicians dominating the parliament, and also male judges dominating the judiciary. Well, the only chance for women in Australian politics and in the judiciary is for women voters to vote for a female political candidate. Not for the party. Vote for a woman. I'm asking all women voters to vote for a woman, number one. To give your number one vote to a woman candidate. Well, in my party in Western Australia, there's only 2 female candidates so far, and they haven't released all the names yet. But I'm contesting the Fremantle federal electorate. I'll be in the ballot paper. And the Tangney candidate is a woman. She's got a double master's and a PhD in something, which is great. The only chance for women politically is for women voters to give your number one vote to a woman candidate. And in the Fremantle federal electorate, there is a woman politician, Melissa Park, but she's not strong enough leader. She's not strong enough. She might be a nice lady. This is not personal, but she's not strong enough. And the Fremantle federal electorate is going to need a strong politician to stand up to Tony Abbott and the Liberal politicians. Please, in the Fremantle federal electorate, do not give your number one vote to the Liberal Party. Do not give your number one vote to the Liberal Party. Please give your number one vote to me. I'm asking the men and women of the Fremantle federal electorate to give your number one vote for me. To me. Your number one vote to me. Because if you vote number one for Melissa Park, she was not strong enough to stand up to Tony Abbott and the other Liberal politicians. And she should have had a ministerial role by now, especially as a woman Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, who is going to be voted out. She should have had a ministerial role, and she did not have a ministerial role. She was not given a ministerial role, so she'll never get a ministerial role. She's not strong enough. And I am strong enough. You know from the broadcasting I've done, talked about all sorts of issues in our society, that I am strong enough and that I will speak my mind about everything, and I will stand up to Tony Abbott and the other Liberal politicians, and I will fight for the rights and freedoms and the interests of the voters in the Fremantle federal electorate. I will side with constituents when they come to my office, when you come to my office. I will side with you before any government agency throughout Australia, because most of the government agencies destroy people's rights and freedoms. And if you come to my office as a voter in Fremantle and you vote, if I'm voted number one, if I win the seat of Fremantle, I could be the Prime Minister of our nation within 10 years. That's how strong a leader I am. And some people have said I'm arrogant. I'm not arrogant. I have to be strong, don't I? I have to be a strong leader, particularly as a woman. I have to speak my mind. I have to be able to fight for the rights of people. It's not arrogance. It makes me a good leader. It makes me a good leader. And I'm asking you to vote for me so I can represent you. So we can pursue together a better vision for our nation, a better vision for our electorate in the areas of education, in the areas of the economy. I want to build an international passenger terminal for international cruise liners in Fremantle, the port city, a separate international passenger terminal for international cruise liners to come to Fremantle to stimulate the economy of the Fremantle electorate and Western Australia. And that's one vision I want to pursue. I'll build that port. I'll get the army to supervise it if I have to prevent interference from the local council or the state politicians. I'll get the funding, and I want to build a huge international passenger cruise terminal separate from the industrial port just north of the port, so we can bring international ships, cruise liner ships to Fremantle port. It's a port city from all over the world to stimulate the economy. It'll create heaps of jobs, it'll be good for small business, it'll increase tourism and all the benefits that go with that, all the economic benefits and all the social benefits as well. I'm asking you to give your number one vote for me, to change things. We'll never have change unless you give your number one vote to people like me. And to meet with me personally. I would love to meet with every voter in the Fremantle federal electorate personally. And you can look into my face and judge for yourself whether I'm worthy and deserving of your number one vote. And I will listen to you, whatever you have to say. I will never turn a voter away. And I'll say, you can't do this, can't do that, that can't be done, there's nothing I can do to help you. I will never do that. I will sit with you and work with you until we resolve your issue. Doesn't matter how long it takes. That I will work with every voter in the Fremantle federal electorate until your issue is resolved. Because that's what good leaders do. And so let's find a solution for these problems. I'm a solutions-driven person, not making excuses. I'm a solutions-driven leader who will continue to work with the people of the Fremantle federal electorate until we find solutions for problems in our electorate, not just our electorate, but our state and our whole nation. And together we can provide leadership to our state and our nation. And you can guarantee that I'll stand up to people like Tony Abbott. Look at him. You know, he's been in the parliament for what, 20 years? And how corrupt has he become? He's going to be the Prime Minister. It's a pretty sad day. You can't trust people like him. And you can't trust Julia Gillard either. I agree. You can't trust Liberal politicians and you can't trust Labor politicians. Because they've failed our country. They have failed. They have failed you and they've failed your family. They're not creating enough jobs. They don't understand the economy. They don't know to stimulate the economy. Their idea of stimulating the economy is to borrow foreign money from foreign banks and foreign corporations and increase foreign investment, and to sell Australian assets and land and destroy the agriculture sector and the manufacturing sector and all sorts of industries. That's their idea of the economy. That's how bad they are. I also asked voters to give your number one vote to who you want and not to be coerced by how to vote cards. Don't follow how to vote cards, because how to vote cards are coercion. They're actually illegal under the Electoral Acts, because you're not allowed to coerce a voter within 5 metres of a polling place. And how to vote cards are coercion. They're illegal. So give your number one vote to whoever you want. Another political candidate, not Liberal or Labor, and then number the rest of the boxes according to your choice, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., in order of your choice. Do not follow how to vote cards, because they have disempowered the voters of Australia by using how to vote cards, by fooling you into thinking you have to follow the how to vote card. You don't have to follow the how to vote card. It's a way that they have indoctrinated you to vote in a particular way. So they have really disempowered the voters of Australia by doing that. You need to choose your number one candidate by the candidate, not the party, by the candidate, and then put number 2 box, number 3, number 4, number 5, the rest of the boxes 2, 3, 4, 5, according to your choice. It's your choice, it's your decision, it's your vote, it's your order, and I'm asking you not to follow how to vote cards, to decide for yourself the order of the boxes, because it's coercion. And they've disempowered you as a voter by using how to vote cards. In fact, under the WA Electoral Act, how to vote cards are only supposed to be used for mobile polling places, for elderly people, for example, not for the general population. There's no provision in the Electoral Acts for it to be used in the general population. It's only for mobile polling. So they are using it as a political weapon to coerce you to vote in a particular way. They have disempowered you as a voter by doing that. So I'm asking you to think for yourself a number one vote, give it to someone else, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the boxes, number all the boxes to make your vote valid according to your choice, your order, your vote. It's your preference, not the party's. So don't follow the how to vote card. Make your own decision. So I'm asking for your number one vote, and I'm asking for voters throughout Australia to give your number one vote to other political parties or candidates or independent candidates. Give your number one vote to other political candidates and put Liberal and Labor last and second last, where they deserve to go. Thank you very much.